Hi everyone, welcome to my sailing YouTube channel, sailing other people's boats, because that's what I'm about. You'll notice I'm once again making a video in my office and not on a boat, because I don't have one. That's the dream someday, but here we are. I'd like to talk to you today about a very hard lesson I learned on my first saltwater bareboat charter experience without a skipper, so not in classes, so flying solo with just me, my wife, and my two kids. We were on, I believe it was our fourth day of a charter week sailing on the Bay of Naples in Italy, and I was feeling pretty good. Everything was going pretty well, but we still hadn't used our dinghy yet, and I decided that I was going to try to anchor off the Bay of Amalfi and dinghy the family into the city, and maybe we were going to anchor overnight just to see how it goes. So after a slightly nerve-wracking experience getting the boat settled in at anchor, in a little bit of a rolly sea, nothing serious, we got the dinghy off the boat and got it down into the water, and I manhandled the little 10 horsepower outboard out onto the boat and got everything secured, and I climbed in the boat and the dinghy and started pulling on the motor to get it running, and it was kind of sputtering, but I played with the choke a little bit, played with the throttle, and thought I had things figured out. So here's where I started to break really stupid rules that you're told not to break in every sailing class ever, and I'm sharing this with you, and it's somewhat embarrassing, but if I can give lessons learned to somebody, and if someone else can avoid repeating my mistakes and putting themselves and their family in danger, then that's what it's all about. So first thing that goes wrong is I'm on the boat, on the dinghy rather, and I'm a pretty big guy, but I sat down on the edge of it, and my ass is a little wet, and I thought, well, that's kind of strange. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. So then my 4-year-old gets in the boat, and then my 5-year-old, or then my 10-year-old, and then my wife. Now our little 4-person dinghy is riding real low in the water. Should have stopped there, but I didn't. So we slowly get the dinghy out, put it in reverse, and I point it towards the dock. And Amalfi Bay, there's a lot of traffic in the old town. There's a lot of recreational boaters going by. There's some commercial ferries, so it's a pretty lively, pretty sporty place. But I puttered very, very slowly because I thought slow was good on a dinghy. I know better now. Managed to get the family up against a pretty big concrete dock with some steps, and got them off the boat. So that worked out. When I went to go find the dinghy dock to tie up my dock, that's when that's when things started to get a little sporty in the water. First, as I was puttering across the marina, my engine died, and I was essentially drifting in an area where very big, I don't know, 25, 30 meter commercial ferries are moving in and out to pick up and drop off passengers. It's not a place you want to be on a little 4-person rubber dinghy with a stalled motor. But I managed to pull on the thing, on the string, get the dinghy up and running a little bit, puttered some more, and splat. It died. Of course, this wouldn't have been such a... So I feel a huge sense of relief. I made it to a marina, and the marina's hopping. There are big charter catamarans, big monohulls coming in. The dock hands are working their butts off getting all of these boats parked into super tight, very complicated spaces. And I begged one of them, looking like a very wet and confused rookie, and said, "Hey, where can I put this dinghy?" And the dockhand says, "You can't put it there. My boss will get super mad at me. Give me a few minutes and I'll come back and help you." And so he did. And he brought another deckhand. And the three of us proceeded to pick up the dinghy, which isn't super heavy. 3 big guys can easily move these things around. And we carry it towards the further into the shallow water of the marina where a monohull or a cat couldn't park. And that's where things got even a little worse for me. As the dockhands and I were setting the boat back into the water to tie it off, the bottom of the outboard, this is my phone, imagine this is where the propeller is, and my hand's the dock, it hits the dock as it's going into the water, and the brand new outboard goes splash into about 6 meters of water. I remember looking at it and somehow just for that half second thinking, "Please float." And it didn't. Gave up a few bubbles. And I looked at the dockhands, and the dockhands looked at me, and they said, "You didn't tighten that down to the transom?" And I said, "Well, of course it was pretty tight. I don't know." And that was probably the low point of my sailing trip for that whole charter week. So the panic starts to set in. I just put a very new, very nice outboard motor in the bottom of a marina, and I'm signed for this. And I asked these poor dockhands, "Oh my God, what do I do now?" And they said, "Well, you got to go get it." And I said, I don't think I can dive on that. I said, "Hold on, I got to go tell my wife and kids that I'm okay and tell them what happened." And I am shaken. I'm shaken up from this whole process. My adrenaline's still pretty high because I damn near got ran over by a ferry. The outboard failed on me. Even getting my wife and kiddo on a dock felt a little bit dodgy. This was not a comfortable experience. I was very stressed out. So I walk over to where my wife and kiddo are, and they haven't seen me for going on an hour now. And I come soaked up to my armpits in salt water. My shoes are wet. And I explain to them what happened. And I say, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I screwed up badly. This is horrible. I got to go back." So I go back. So as I'm panicking, wondering what I'm going to do and how I'm going to get this outboard out of the sea, a miracle happens. And if you've sailed even for a little bit, you begin to understand how much other sailors will help each other. And one of them stepped in and saved me, that's for sure. So a British guy pops out of one of the other charter boats in the marina and says, "Hey, what happened?" And I quickly explained to him, "My dinghy, my outboard's in the sea. I don't know what to do." And he says, "Oh, how deep do you think it is?" And the guy said, "Maybe 6, maybe 8 meters." And the British guy goes, "Yeah, right. Let me get my goggles and put on some swim trunks." And I said, "Okay, I gotta run. I'll go tell my family what happened." By the time I came back, my outboard was sitting on the dock, and the dockhands were frantically hosing it off, trying to get salt water out of the outboard. So it turns out my new British friend that helped me is a very successful businessman who happened to own a dive company before his current business venture. And he was a professional scuba diver, and he was also a very good skin diver. So fortunately, I happened to drop a outboard in a marina beside a highly qualified diver who was more than comfortable diving to that depth, tying a bowline around the motor and coming back up to the surface and helping the dockhands pull the motor out of the water. So that kind of saved me. But it also didn't save the outboard. We all tried frantically to get it started, but it was flooded, and it was flooded with salt water. I, of course, called the charter company and reported what happened, and they said, well, we'll deal with it when you bring the boat back. And the outboard, according to the charter company, and I tend to believe them, called it a total write-off. And I ended up losing my security deposit on the charter boat, but I fortunately took the damage waiver, the insurance waiver, so I lost about $600 instead of maybe a couple thousand that the outboard would have cost, which is another very valuable lesson. If you are a new charterer and you are a new sailor and you are chartering boats for the first time or the first 5 times, always take the waiver. Reduce your financial risk as much as possible. I'd rather pay $300, $400, $500, $600 than lose a $3,000 security deposit for damaging the boat or the dinghy. So here's a quick summary of all of the things I did wrong when trying to operate a dinghy in a live environment for the first time. One, I did not have a good working level of comfort with operating the outboard motor or the dinghy. A common fallacy, at least in my head, is I am a day skipper. I have a license and I have training, so of course I know how a dinghy works. Operating a dinghy isn't in the RYA curriculum, and I don't think it's in the ASA curriculum. It is a different skill set, and dinghies are probably more dangerous than the sailboats, quite frankly. So that's the first one that I made a huge mistake with. Second, I didn't check to see if the dinghy was fully inflated prior to getting in it. That was just negligence on my part. I had assumed that the charter company would provide me a dinghy that was fully inflated, but it wasn't. And now that I've chartered a few more times since then, I appreciate in that part of the Mediterranean, that dinghy probably never was used because of the conditions there. So I put my family in an underinflated dinghy. Another lesson, a truly horrific mistake that I made, and it haunts me to this day, is my family were not wearing life jackets, and I wasn't wearing a life jacket. Both my wife and I and children are strong swimmers, but there's no excuse. I think in the back of my head, I was maybe concerned that if I parked this dinghy with all of the stuff in it, that it could potentially be stolen. But it shakes me up to think about this. I was willing to risk the loss of a life jacket by theft to potential loss of life of a family member. The calculus is insanely stupid. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but I wanted to put it out there. Always have your life jackets. Even if I'm by myself as a pretty strong swimmer, I'm not going to be a very strong swimmer if I fall off the boat and get knocked unconscious or get hit by a power boater or run over by a ferry. But if I have a life jacket on, at least I'm going to be floating and someone will at least find me and maybe be able to help. This is absolutely a stupid decision on my part. Third, I didn't pack oars because I had a brand new working outboard motor. Always pack your oars unless you want to look like a jackass doggy paddling a four-person dinghy across a marina. That also could have seriously injured me or my family. Just stupid. If you have the oars, use them. I would much rather now go out on a dinghy with just paddles than an outboard. The final lesson is make sure the outboard is really, really, really secure on the transom of your dinghy. If not, it might fall in the water and land in the bottom of the marina, which is nowhere you want to be. And I think a couple more lessons I would encourage you to think about is one, definitely take the damage waiver on the yacht charter, because I say this with a little bit of humor in my voice. I think the local charter base was a little sad that I took it, because that meant they could only take $600 from me, and that didn't replace the cost of the outboard. I'm sure they had to go back through corporate to get the rest of their money back, and that was a lot of paperwork for them. The other very important lesson is there are people all around you in the marina who could potentially help you, but you have to ask. I think a lot of us get into sailing because we have a bit of an independent streak and we want to do things ourselves. But it takes pretty humble person to realize you've made a series of horrible mistakes and you look like a fool, and to ask for help. And we were very grateful to the man and his wife who helped us get that outboard out of the salt water and back onto our boat. Even though the outboard was destroyed, we at least didn't abandon it, and it didn't create some sort of environmental damage to the beautiful Amalfi coast. Another thing to say about this experience that humbled me and I learned is, if you are taking out a boat and you're taking friends and family or just yourself, you need to understand, at least at a basic level, how practically every system works on that boat, including the dinghy, including the flares or the emergency equipment or whatever. And you have to hold the line when it comes to thinking about safety first. The conditions that you'll face when you charter, you're going to be out on the water for a long day and you're going to see in front of you a gorgeous marina and a beautiful old town and people, enjoying their sundowners and having a great time. And all you want to do is go be them. And I personally became a little bit blinded by that, and I was in a hurry to finally get my family off the boat into Amalfi like I promised them. And because of that, I took a series of stupid shortcuts, which literally could have had fatal consequences. So that's a hard thing to say, but it's a truth that I had to learn. Hey, if you found this video helpful in any way, please don't forget to click like. Even click subscribe. I don't have a lot of videos. In fact, this might be the first one I post, but it sure means a lot to me and helps me understand the demand signal. If anyone out there is interested in learning the kind of lessons that I'm learning the hard way as I start my journey sailing, that I can share with you all. So please click like and subscribe. Thanks so much.